I guess I already asked for Mary's hand, but I really would appreciate having your blessing.
Brandan, you've already knocked up his granddaughter. You've proposed to her without his blessing. Yeah, the sentiment might be sweet, but it's a little too late. I don't think he likes Brandan very much. And Mary isn't really helping the situation.
Ay kung tayo magpakasal kami antes magwa ang bata. Okay lang, Timo?
Hold up, Mary, what's happening here? Do you actually want your granddad to give his blessing? She couldn't have said that with any less enthusiasm, could she? Now, before we get to the granddad's response, let's rewind to the start. So, when we last saw Brandan and Mary, their relationship was crumbling around them. Brandan looked like he was tapping out, and Mary seemed resigned to it.
So would it be better if I just go back to America then?
Maybe. Maybe because you can change your attitude.
Would it be better if he went back to the States? Well, yes and no. It's a difficult one to answer, isn't it? Because on the one hand, you'd say that any man who voluntarily leaves their child behind in another country, a man who isn't active in that child's life and neglects his parental responsibility, is a deadbeat. But then we come to this particular circumstance. Brandan's come to the Philippines completely unprepared. He doesn't speak the language, he can't work, and they have no income. So at least if he went back to the States and started earning some money, he could go back to doing what he was good at. What's that, you might ask? Well, it's sending all his money back to Mary, of course. Now, hearing what Mary had to say, hearing that she is willing to let him leave, suddenly causes Brandan to backtrack.
I'm saying sorry now, and I'm making a commitment, an oath, to change.
An oath? Brandan, mate, you've been watching too much Game of Thrones. Look, actions speak louder than words. If you're gonna change, change. Don't talk about it, don't promise and make oaths, just do it. This is tough to watch because we've seen Brandan talk about change so many times in the past, yet nothing seems to happen. They're in a worse position now than ever before. But Mary latches onto it anyway. She makes it clear exactly what she expects of him.
You need to wake up early and help me with chores.
Okay. This conversation is a big reality check for me. We need to try to minimize our fighting and arguments.
Look, it's good to see that Brandan's come to this realization. But at the same time, he's not the only one to blame for all of their arguments. He's taking on all the responsibility. He's the one holding his hands up and apologising. But we all know that Mary is just as much, if not more, at fault. So why is Brandan so willing to take all of the flack?
I do not want to raise my child in a chaotic household or with parents who separate. I've lived in that sort of environment.
Yeah, I think we can all see that Brandan's past trauma is spilling over into this relationship. It's left him with crippling self-esteem issues. That's why he's ended up in this horrible toxic relationship in the first place. He feels lesser than Mary somehow, and he's constantly feeling this need to prove himself to her. He actually said so himself the last time these two had an explosive fight.
Which is why it hurts so much when I feel like I don't have this trust, because it brings me back to this state of mind like I'm not good enough.
And that seems to be where he's coming from now. Instead of also holding Mary accountable for her role in all of their relationship problems, he's defaulting back to this view that he's not worthy. He's the one that needs to change. So to prove he's serious, he now turns to Mary's granddad.
I guess I already asked for Mary's hand, but I really would appreciate having your blessing.
Brandan, I don't think that Mary's granddad gives a shit about sentiment at this point. In his eyes, you've come into their lives and yeah, while they've got a house out of it, they also blame you for ruining their reputation in the community. You've turned up, you've impregnated their granddaughter out of wedlock, and you've made them the talking point of the village. I don't really think blessing means anything at this point. But it's a token gesture. It's his way of trying to show respect, to apologise in a way. So it's now left for Mary to translate what he's just said.
Ay kung ano tayo magpakasal kami antes magwa ang bata. Okay lang, Timo?
Mary's awful translations are back with a vengeance. Brandan's just been speaking about how whilst he's not the perfect guy, he promises he'll step up. He respectfully asked for the granddad's blessing. But Mary's translation of all of this has boiled down to, what do you reckon, Grandad? Should we get married? It's hardly accurate. And on top of that, to add insult to injury, that request comes after 10 minutes of literally ignoring the granddad whilst arguing and crying in front of him.
Ayaw tao ni makasal na, mga buhi ka masang malinong nga way sang damo sa pagpangabuhi nga di na matulit liwat ang natabo.
Oh dear gosh, what fantasy do all of these people live in? In what world does this man think these two getting married will fix their problems? No money, no job, no therapy, but at least they're getting married, right? Yeah, I'm left wondering if he really believes what he's saying, or if he's just saying it in a desperate bid to try and salvage the family's reputation. At least the baby will be born in wedlock. That's one less thing that the neighbours can gossip about. But either way, wherever the truth lies, it seems like Brandan's gesture, asking for her granddad's permission and blessing, has now softened Mary's stance. She's happy that her granddad's happy. So that, for now at least, puts Brandan back in her good books.
I really didn't expect that he will ask Lolo for the blessing. It means a lot to me because he's showing respect to my Lolo.
Mary, if it means so much, tell me, why did your face look like this as you were asking? I just really can't with Mary's bullshit. She talks about how much she respects her granddad. Yet the second he's out of the house, she did the one thing he begged her not to. She just can't keep having it both ways. She can't keep being this hypocritical. But I guess that's an argument for another day. For now, things with her and Brandan seem to be smoothed over. And Brandan even manages to get a smile out of Grandpa.
Thank you, Salamat, Lolo.
Now, as the conversation comes to a close, Brandan and Mary retreat to their shop. And Mary wants to give Brandan some final words of wisdom.
You will be a father, so you need to control your emotions. I don't want our baby to see that you are like that.
The absolute irony of Mary being the one to tell Brandan to control his emotions shouldn't be lost on anyone. Okay, yes, we were told in the last episode that Brandan was getting angry, he was cursing. But you know what? We haven't really seen any evidence of that with our own eyes, except for one clip. That's one clip. Aside from that, Brandan has had perfect control of his emotions. Heck, you might even go as far as to say he's bordered on seeming a bit robotic. It's Mary that really needs to get a grip of her emotions. But we all know that's not going to happen, because that would require Mary to admit that she's the one that needs to change.
If he doesn't change, I don't know what to do. I don't want my baby to have no father.
Look, here's the thing. I think it's really important to remember that both Mary and Brandan come from broken homes. Both, by their own admission, have big abandonment issues. So it's not really a surprise that despite their gigantic problems, they're both united on that one thing. Neither want to break up this dysfunctional little family unit that they're starting to grow. But the real question, the question that both of them need to ask themselves is, what's best for their poor innocent baby? Is the reality of them getting married actually what's best for the child?